You're listening to the Voicing Your Brand podcast, episode number 13. Welcome to Voicing Your Brand. I'm your host, Tammy Romani, and as a voiceover talent for more than 30 years, I've been a voice for many brands. But in today's digital marketing world, you've got to have your own voice for business. So now my mission is to help you learn how to use your voice for success by unlocking your authentic voice to tell your story and be heard. Are you ready? Welcome to the studio. Thanks for joining me today. I'm really happy you're here. I'll tell you why. We're going to talk about confidence today, having a confident voice. And what I'm going to play for you is a Facebook Live that I did last week. And I talked about 3 of the top things you can do to have a more confident voice, a more confident kind of persona about you. And the reason I'm diving into this now is because it's what everyone asks me. You know, when we talk about your voice and the importance of your voice, it comes down to most people say to me, I just need more confidence. I need more confidence when I'm speaking. I need more confidence. I need to know that I sound okay. I need to know that what I'm going to say is going to resonate with people. I wish I had a magic pill I could give you that would just lock in that confidence for you, but it is the number one thing that I get asked about. So today we're going to dive into 3 things you can do to have a more confident voice. I'm going to play that for you in a minute, but before I do, I want you to write this down. It's a code, podcast 20. Podcast and then the numbers 20 after that. At the end of this episode, I'll tell you where to go to use that to get a discount, okay? I've got something for you, and I'm really excited about it. But let's dive in and listen to this Facebook Live I did several days ago about 3 things you can do to step up your confidence. This is Tammy Romani of Voicing Your Brand, and I'm so excited that you're here with me for this episode of Voicing Your Brand. What we're going to talk about this time is confidence, because I'll tell you what, it is the most common request I get. 90% of my students come to me into my courses saying, I just need more confidence, or I need a more confident voice. And you know, sometimes they say, I don't like how I sound or I hate my voice, all things that are fixable. But I will say that 90% of my students will say to me, if I had more confidence, I would put my message out to the world. Now, that could be confidence in your voice, confidence in your actual words that you're choosing to say. But what I want to dive into right now is just my top 3 tips for beginning this process of getting more confidence into your message, infused into your very soul, because you know what? You have a message that needs to be heard. And it's just killing me how many people I talk to that tell me what their vision is for their business, their ministry, their teaching. Perhaps they're a fitness coach and they're not being heard in an exercise class because they don't have any volume, they don't have any authority. It just kills me that you're not being heard. And so I want to help you with that. Okay, so, you know, it's true that you do need to have somewhat of a commanding vocal presence and a social presence. And if you don't have some confidence, your voice is 100% going to give you away. So I know you've heard this. Have you heard someone giving a speech or an interview where their voice quivers with nervous tension? I mean, you almost feel sorry for them because it's almost like someone's holding a rubber band to their throat, right? You can hear the tightness or almost like this, like I'm grabbing my throat right now to illustrate the sound, but you just hear a tightness in there, or their voice quivers with nervous tension, right? Now, if that's you, I want to help you move forward towards having a more confident voice. So, why would you think a confident voice is important? Think about all the people that you've watched online on this space, Instagram Live, Periscope when we used to have it. I think some people still do that. Facebook Live, or not even live, but perhaps a presentation, perhaps in the boardroom, a meeting at work, a job interview. Sounding unsure of yourself in any of those situations really puts you on a fast track to nowhere. And I hate to say it that way, but your voice is so important in every area of life. Now, right now in this episode, I won't go further into details here, but if you go back to the Voicing Your Brand podcast, episode numbers 2 and 3, the very beginning, where I talk about why your voice matters and the science behind all of it and the first impressions and how people will either lean in to listen to you or back away or scroll on by if they like or don't like your voice. I talk about all of that in episodes 2 and 3. So go back and listen to those. But, there are so many times that we need to sound confident. I remember when I used to work at a university and had made the decision to leave that job and go full-time into entrepreneurship and my voiceover work. And I had to interview my replacement. Well, the very first stage of that interview was a telephone interview. And I think back on that now and how quickly I judged those who may have been qualified, but if they couldn't even speak on the phone, which was a large part of the actual job, they didn't get a second interview. So again, if they had sounded confident on the phone, we would have pushed them through the process. What if you have a one-on-one meeting with your boss? I know that's nerve-wracking, and I know a lot of companies do this. I was always struggled with that, but what if you could just sit up straighter and have more confidence in that situation? I think that one-on-one with your boss would go a lot better. I do. Entrepreneurs, why would someone listen to your ideas if you don't sound sure of yourself? Why would anyone buy your product that you're selling if you don't sound like you believe in it? If you are with a network marketing company or multi-level MLM, why would I want to try your product if you don't sound sure of yourself? If you're in any kind of sales, insurance, are you believable? Are you believable? Come on, let's go here. Even your family. Do your kids listen to you? Do you have to yell to make an impact on your children? That should not happen. A confident voice will make even your kids lean in and take notice. So let's get past all of that, okay? Your voice will either attract people to you or repel people away from you. And, we can talk for days about all the different vocal qualities that turn people off. And again, I talk about that in those episodes I mentioned. But what I hear from people when they don't feel confident in how they speak are things like this. My voice sounds too young, so no one will take me seriously. I sound too soft. My kids can't even hear me. I sound too old. People turn off my videos after a couple of minutes. Why? Why are they doing that? Well, to have a commanding vocal presence, you have to show up and you have to have some confidence. But then we're going back to the same request I hear over and over. How can I sound more confident? Google it. There are so many things you can do to build confidence in yourself that will carry over to your voice. So many. And I'm not kidding. If you do a quick Google search or go to your local library, look up all the books on confidence, you'll go home with, a stack this big, and you will see hundreds and hundreds of thousands of websites if you Google how to have more confidence, how to speak confidently, how to portray a confidence, anything like that, you will come up with so much. But today I'm going to get you started on this path by giving you just 3 tips to sounding more confident, because I am the voice person and that's what people come to me for. So remember, we're not discussing vocal clarity or technique right now. And yes, competence breeds confidence. But this episode is not about your actual voice and how it sounds. It's really deeper than that. This episode of this podcast today is about pulling from deep down inside of you the ability to talk about whatever it is you're promoting. So, with that in mind, and these are not particularly in any order, and like I said, there are a lot more things we could talk about, but I'm just going to give you 3 tips right now to get you started. The very first thing is do your homework and know what you're talking about. I mean, I know this really sounds like a no-brainer, but just like I mentioned before, competence breeds confidence. So you've got to know your stuff. You've got to put in the time studying what you want to teach. So if it's a product in your network marketing company or your retail job, you've got to know about that product so that you can answer questions. Now, I've done both of those things, and honestly, fake it till you make it is not really an option here. For example, let me tell you this example. When I worked in a ski shop, I had to know, and we were trained by manufacturers, I had to know the specifications of the skis, the boots, the bindings, and I had to know all of that in order to match the customer with the right product. Now, if I didn't do that correctly, that would result in them having a terrible experience skiing on the mountain. They would have either, perhaps they were a beginner and I would have put them in racing quality equipment. It would have probably resulted in a broken leg, to be honest. There's just certain things that you have to know. So if you have a product, you have a service, you have anything that you are talking about, know your stuff so that you don't have to think about it. You don't even have to think about it. Almost overthink it to the point of it being second nature to you. If what you talk about, maybe you are a exercise specialist or a dietitian or something, I know you know your stuff. You've done your studying. If you're a psychiatrist, psychologist, you know what you're talking about. Any kind of a researcher, you've got that in you. But if it's something that you want to talk about that's kind of new to you, you really need to put in the time and know what you're talking about. So I want to say here that I asked some of my voiceover colleagues to answer this question about confidence. And I asked them in the context of, hey, if you had a client come to you, or a friend rather, that just said, how can I sound more confident? A lot of them had some really interesting things to say. And I just want to share, I'm going to actually quote for you this comment from Austin because it covered all the bases in terms of becoming competent in your message. Okay, here's what he said. Competence breeds confidence. Accept your nervousness. Accept your anxiety and embrace it. Recognize that you should be nervous and you have the right to be freaked out by the experience. It's totally normal. After that, the best advice is repeat exposure. Competence comes from practice and putting oneself into the environments that one wishes to be confident in. If I want to be a great public speaker, I arrange to speak publicly at frequent intervals. And then he adds, Toastmasters is great practice for that. once I am in public speaking situations, I would force myself to speak up and boldly, even if my voice shakes, even if tears of anxiety come to my eyes, finish, make it through. Doing that repeatedly will embolden me and ensure that I get used to this kind of vulnerability. Doing that repeatedly with time will create competence, thus creating confidence. Oh my gosh. I mean, I could not have said that better. So thank you, Austin, for that very solid advice. I can't say it enough. Know what you're talking about. That's tip number 1. Now, tip number 2 is kind of a tip for sounding more authentic and sounding like your authentic self. And that is talk to one person. Obviously, when you're promoting anything online or even giving a speech in a room for that matter, or here I am recording a podcast episode where I'm talking to many people. But the way to make each person feel like you are talking just to them is to do that. Talk to just one person. Now, this is the difference between saying things like, "Hey, Instagram, how are you doing today?" Or "How are you guys all doing today? I'm so glad you've all joined me for this presentation." Or "Hey, Facebook," or "You guys all know this, but I want to tell you all." And "Hey, everyone." Now, this is something I'm really aware of myself and working on, but what I've noticed when I watch videos online from people that I follow, and I see all kinds of people doing this. But the second they say something uber inclusive like, "Hey, everyone," or "Hey, Facebook," there's a disconnect. There's an instant disconnect. Like, oh, they're not really talking to me. Okay. They're not talking directly to me. But if you say something like, "How are you doing today? I've got some great tips for you. I'd like to help you with this. If you will comment below, then I'll know just what you need and how I can help you." I'm still talking to a whole world of people out there, whoever might be listening to this podcast, watching my live on Facebook, on Instagram, on a video on YouTube. But because I have used the word "you," and I'm really literally thinking of one person when I speak, that each person individually then feels like I'm talking directly to them. Do you see the difference and how important that is? It becomes a one-to-one conversation instead of one-to-many. And people like to feel included, and they like to know that they're seen. I see you, and I know that I can help you. That's the kind of thing that makes people know, like, and trust you. And it kind of infuses this sense of authenticity. Now, on a side note, when you're doing video, I want you to add to this effect by looking at the camera lens. Now, I know you've all seen this. Oh, do you catch me? I just did it. You all. Disconnect, right? I'm going to rephrase that. I know you've seen this. You have seen people you've looked at your Instagram and you've seen people and you've thought, what are they looking at? Because their eyes, their gaze is just a little bit looking down. Well, you know what they're looking at? They're looking at themselves. They're looking at themselves. Find that. Find the lens on your laptop, on your phone. If you have to put a sticky note or something over yourself, do that so that you're not distracted, and look at the lens. That's how someone will know that you are speaking directly to them. Now, if you're in a live situation and you're speaking to a room, it's not a good idea to pick one person and just lock in on them. That will make them feel so awkward, and yeah, that is not going to be a good idea. Make sure your gaze kind of scans the room and doesn't really lock eyes with any one person. So it is a bit harder than on video, but make each person feel like you are talking directly to them is still a very good technique and just priceless. So let's review now. Number 1 is to know what you're talking about. Number 2 is to talk to one person, make it personal. And now you're going to laugh at my third tip, but my third tip for having a confident voice is to breathe. I know, right? This really should be number 1, but it's such an assumed thing that we all know how to do this. Like, I've been breathing since I was born. Why are you telling me to breathe? And I find that you might gloss over it and not think it's important if I mention it first, when in fact, it is the most important thing. Breathing properly is the foundation of all good speech. And learning how to breathe correctly makes you sound more confident. So yes, you've got to know what you're talking about and who you're talking to, but when you've got those things down and you still sound a bit shaky, you can fix that with proper breathing. And I know what you're thinking. I've been breathing my whole life. What's to learn? Like, really, what could I possibly be doing differently than I am already? Well, it turns out there's quite a bit you could learn. So I want you to do a simple test with me. Put one hand on your chest, kind of by your collarbone. Put your hand up high. And one hand on your stomach, kind of by your rib cage. This is your diaphragm area. Your diaphragm is the muscle that controls your breathing, among other things. And like any muscle, it can be trained to operate more efficiently. So just as you're holding your hands in those two places, just take your normal breath that you would when you're talking. Now, which hand rises? If it's the hand up on your chest by your collarbone or your shoulders, you're breathing shallow and you're just taking air into the top part of your lungs. If the hand on your stomach is moving, then you're taking a good deep breath and you're filling up your lungs with air. So maybe you are intuitive this way, or maybe you've had some vocal training for singing. I find that a lot of singers already know this, but they don't really understand that it carries over to their speaking. So let me just share the difference with you. And I think you'll be able to hear this. I'm going to take a shallow breath right now. All right, I'm going to give you my introduction. Hi, my name is Tammy Romani of TammyRomani.com. And you'll notice that that's as loud as I can speak right now. I'm breathing very shallow into the top part of my lungs, and I cannot push out any more air or any more volume. Now I'll take a deep breath. Hello, my name is Tammy Romani of TammyRomani.com, and I'm here to help you tell your story. Do you hear the difference? I heard the difference. The difference is huge. So before you speak, online, going live, to a group, on a job interview, take 3 good, deep cleansing breaths. And this is going to take some daily practice too. Fill up those lungs. Taking a deep breath like that will calm your nerves. There's a reason that yoga is a lot about breathing. It calms your whole body down. It oxygenates your blood throughout your whole body, including your brain, and it calms down your nervous system. So you take 3 good breaths, you fill up those lungs, You calm your nerves, and then on that third breath, you speak through the exhale like this. Hello, my name is Tammy Romani. I'm a brand voice strategist, and I host a podcast called Voicing Your Brand. Do you hear how I just spoke on the exhale there? That's what I want you to practice. Deep breathing, slow your roll a little bit, will vastly improve the sound of your voice, and it will make you sound more confident. So I think it's really also important to note here that everyone listening to you is really silently cheering for you. I know I often think, oh, I screwed up there. Most people don't notice those things. They're really on your side, and they want to hear what you have to say. They do. Now, my friend Andy says, I tell my students to think these two thoughts. Number one, everyone listening to you is rooting for you. They do not hope you suck. They are on your side. And number two, you already don't have whatever it is you're coming for. The job, the role, the sale, etc. The absolute worst that can happen is that after you're done, you'll be exactly where you are now, still without the job, the role, the sale, etc. That's the worst that can happen. I mean, when you put it that way, right? It's time to get over yourself. And I will say that action brings clarity here. You have to take action. Just saying, I hope I can get better at this. I hope my voice sounds confident without actually doing the work to build that confidence. That's not really a strategy, and that's not going to move you forward. So I hope this has been helpful to you. If it has, I want to tell you and let you know, be the first to know that I am opening the doors soon. The last 10 days of this month, in fact, I have a program called A Confident Voice. And it will include 5 weeks of group coaching where we can tackle all of this together. All the things you are seeing as roadblocks to moving forward in your business. If you are using your voice as an excuse for not doing something you know you are called to do, I hope you'll join me for a brief time of confidence boosting and practice to get you past that roadblock. Maybe you're feeling a call to start a podcast or a YouTube channel to teach something that you know. Maybe you want to hold workshops in your community or teach fitness classes and actually be heard above the music. Whatever it is, I don't want you to have this excuse anymore. Okay? So I thank you for joining me today. You know, you can get more information about what I just talked about at aconfidentvoice.com. But stay tuned for more because there are more tips coming, and those 3, though, if you really work on those, I think you'll see that in all of your life situations, you'll begin to have more confidence in your voice. So thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you next time. Okay, now that was me recording my podcast here live on Facebook. I hope that information was helpful to you, and I hope that you will reach out to me. Let me know in the comments if this was helpful to you, and let me know what you would like to know. Now, I just gave today 3 tips that might help move you forward and get you kind of on the road to talking about whatever it is you need to share with the world. Okay? Your message is important. Your story matters, and I want to see you stepping up and really taking ownership of what you've got. Okay? So this has been fun. I will talk to you next time. Well, hey, that was fun, wasn't it? It's always good to take a look at yourself and figure out what you need to improve. I know it's a constant thing for me. I hope it is for you. But going back to that word I asked you to write at the beginning of this episode, podcast 20, I've got something for you. If what we talked about today resonated with you and you are starting to realize that you just don't have the confidence that you need, that you back off and you are holding yourself back from great things that you know you're supposed to do, and man, if I'm talking to you, you know who you are. You know who you are. If you have ever had the thought, I hate my voice, no one will like my voice, no one will listen to me, no one will believe me, what I say is not important, you are believing a lie, and it's a pretty easy fix. Yes, people do judge you by your voice, but there's a lot you can do to sound more confident, to carry your voice with more presence so that people will lean in and take notice. And what I like to say is, if you are using your voice as a roadblock right now, if you've said all those things, you are using it as a roadblock to your success. Let's flip the script on that and make it a gateway. Your voice can bring you everything you want in life if you learn how to use it to your advantage. So I've got something for you. I want you to go to aconfidentvoice.com and take a look at the course I'm offering right now. Now, this is only going to be open through the end of February 2019 for our current session. If you're listening to this months or even years ahead, still go to aconfidentvoice.com and see if we're open right now or if you can get on the VIP waitlist for the next session. But for right now, we are launching right now as we speak. And so I would like to offer my podcast listeners a 20% discount. So go to aconfidentvoice.com, enter the code podcast20 for 20% off. And doors close on February 28th, and then we are going to start doing the work the first week of March. And I would love to see you in that group. I really want to see a transformation for you. If you are listening to this now and you are feeling a tug, then I think you're supposed to be there. So I hope to see you. aconfidentvoice.com, enter the code podcast20. Okay? Thanks so much for joining me today. I'll see you next time in the studio.